The repair bay on Station Cathara 9 fell silent as Malik Chen stepped back from his workbench, wiping grease from his hands. Before him, two massive forms lay intertwined, not in combat, but in an impossible mechanical embrace that had baffled the galaxy's finest engineers for 3 rotations. The Draconid were an ancient species, their bodies a fusion of organic matter and crystalline technology that had evolved over millennia. When two of their kind underwent the binding, a sacred ritual where their neural matrices synchronized, they became something greater than the sum of their parts. But sometimes, rarely, catastrophically, the binding went wrong. Scareth and Velrin had been locked together for days, their consciousness trapped in a feedback loop. Their crystalline spines fused at angles that defied the physics their own people understood. The Draconid elders had called in specialists from 40 star systems. All had failed. Then someone mentioned the human mechanic who fixed impossible things. Malik had arrived on a third-class transport, carrying only a worn toolkit and a thermos of coffee that smelled like burnt rubber. The elders had been skeptical. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, barely 2 centuries into space travel. What could this small, soft creature do that their greatest minds could not? "Let me look," Malik had said simply. For hours he circled the intertwined dragons, occasionally touching a crystalline ridge, peering into the glowing matrices that pulsed with trapped neural energy. The elders watched, their skepticism growing with each passing moment. The human didn't use advanced scanners or quantum analyzers. He just looked, touched, and occasionally made a small humming sound. "Your problem," Malik finally announced, "isn't the binding itself. It's the emergency protocols." Elder Thasix, his scales dulled by centuries of wisdom, tilted his massive head. "Explain, human." When the binding started to fail, their systems panicked. Each tried to protect the other by shutting down non-essential functions. But they're so integrated now that each one thinks the other's critical systems are non-essential. They're locked in a protective loop, each trying to save the other by restraining them. "We know this," Thasix rumbled. "But the solution requires simultaneously accessing both neural cores at the exact quantum frequency while maintaining individual identity." "Yeah." Malik picked up a simple calibration tool. "But you're thinking about it wrong. You're trying to untangle them from the outside. You need to convince them to untangle themselves." The human approached Scareth's crystalline matrix, where consciousness flickered like trapped lightning. He made 3 adjustments with his basic tool, adjustments so simple that several elders hissed in disbelief. Then he moved to Velrin and did the same. Nothing happened. "Human, this is..." Thasix began. "Wait," Malik said, checking his chronometer. 30 seconds, he counted down silently. At 0, he tapped each dragon once in a specific sequence on ridges that the elders hadn't even considered relevant to neural function. The effect was immediate. Both dragons shuddered. Their crystalline matrices flickered, dimmed, then blazed with renewed light. With a sound like singing crystal, they began to separate, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization, not away from each other, but in a deliberate, graceful unwinding. 3 minutes later, Scareth and Velrin stood apart, their binding completed properly, their consciousness merged but distinct. They looked at each other, then at the human with eyes that held the wisdom of their successful union. "How?" Velrin's voice harmonized with Scareth's, the perfect merger they'd sought. Malik shrugged. "I grew up fixing motorcycles. Sometimes when parts seize together, you don't force them apart. You remind them how they're supposed to move, then let them do the work. Your emergency protocols were stuck in a loop, so I gave each system permission to trust the other again. The taps were just a restart sequence." The elders stood frozen, processing what they'd witnessed. This human had solved in hours what had stumped them for days, using tools a hatchling could operate and logic that seemed almost primitive in its simplicity. That had been yesterday. Now, as dawn broke over Cathara 9's artificial horizon, Malik packed his toolkit. The repair bay doors opened, and he looked up to find the space filled with Draconid. Not just the elders, but hundreds of them, their scales catching the morning light in cascading rainbows. At the front, Elder Thasix lowered his massive head until his crest nearly touched the floor. Around him, every other Draconid did the same, a gesture of profound respect that their species reserved for the rarest moments. "Malik Chen," Thasix's voice resonated with harmonics of awe. "You have done what our greatest could not. You saved not just 2 lives, but the future they will build together. The Draconid remember their debts across generations. Malik felt heat rise to his cheeks. I just fixed what was broken. No, Scareth and Velrin spoke together, stepping forward. You saw what we could not see, thought what we could not think. This is the human gift, to find simple truths in complex problems, to trust instinct where we trust only calculation. We were told, another elder spoke, that humans are reckless, impulsive, that you lack the sophistication of older species. Maybe that's exactly why it works, Malik said, shouldering his toolkit. Sometimes the sophisticated answer is wrong because it's too sophisticated. Sometimes you just need to remember that even complicated things are built from simple pieces. As he walked through the avenue of bowed dragons toward his transport, Malik couldn't help but smile. The galaxy was full of ancient species with technology that seemed like magic and wisdom that spanned millennia. But every machine, no matter how advanced, still followed basic rules, and sometimes all you needed was a good mechanic who understood that the most complex problems could have the simplest solutions. Behind him, the Draconid rose and the words spread across their networks, across their worlds. Remember the human mechanic. Remember that wisdom is not always found in age, and that sometimes the newest voice in the chamber speaks the truest words. The galaxy would learn what Cathera 9 now knew. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their aggression. It was their ability to see the obvious thing that everyone else had overlooked.